You ever wake up thinking the worst you have to deal with is a busted gate hinge and cold chili for breakfast, only to end up in a staring contest with two folks in neon vests treating your ditch like the Grand Canyon? Yeah, that was my Tuesday. I poured myself a mug of black coffee, planning on fixing that hinge before the heat set in, when I noticed a pair of strangers standing right at the edge of my property. Clipboards in hand, safety vests glowing, and that smug look folks get when they think their little badge or logo makes them invincible. Now, I don't live in some manicured subdivision. I live on a stretch of land my granddad worked with his own two hands. It's quiet, it's rough, and I like it that way. But right across the road sits an HOA-controlled development, a collection of boxy little houses stacked like playing cards. And let me tell you, that HOA, run by a woman named Karen, has been a thorn in my side since the day they broke ground. See, the edge of my property has a drainage ditch, been there since long before the HOA existed. It's my ditch, my responsibility, and it runs into the creek on the back side of my land. But these two vest-wearing visitors, they were measuring, pointing, and shaking their heads like they'd just discovered a sinkhole to hell. I stepped out on my porch, boots crunching the gravel, and called out, "Can I help you folks, or are you just admiring my dirt?" The taller one puffed up. "We're here on behalf of the Willow Bend Homeowners Association. This drainage is in violation of HOA guidelines." I nearly spit my coffee. "HOA guidelines? Buddy, this is my land. You don't get to tell me how deep my ditch is." They scribbled something on their clipboard and strutted off, leaving a notice zip-tied to my gate. Bright red letters. "Correct drainage violation in 72 hours, or face fines." Now, I don't know about you, but being told by strangers to fix a ditch on land I own outright, that'll get a man's blood boiling before breakfast. I figured maybe it was a misunderstanding, so I drove down to the HOA office, little building that looks more like a dentist's lobby than anything official. Karen herself was waiting, arms crossed, pearls shining in the fluorescent light. "Mr. Jackson," she said, dragging my name out like she was tasting something sour. "Your ditch is a hazard. Our neighborhood children could fall in and injure themselves. It must be filled in." I stared at her. "Ma'am, your neighborhood children have no business playing on my land. That ditch is mine, always has been." She slid a stack of papers across the desk. "Failure to comply will result in fines accruing at $100 per day. We will also pursue legal action." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "You're threatening me with HOA bylaws out here? Lady, this isn't your playground. And I'll tell you what, you step foot on my land again without my say-so, and it won't be lawyers you'll be dealing with. It'll be the sheriff." Karen's smile didn't budge. That was the moment I realized she wasn't bluffing. She believed in her bones that she could control me. And that, my friends, is when things turned ugly. Within a week, orange spray paint appeared along the ditch. Survey flags, too. I caught one of their maintenance men in the act, and when I shouted him off my land, he muttered something about just following orders. Then came the vandalism. My mailbox got knocked clean off its post. My fence was cut. And one morning, I found their hired crew with a backhoe parked right on the edge of my field, ready to start filling the ditch with dirt. I pulled my truck across the entrance and stood there, arms folded. "You put one shovel of dirt in that ditch and you're trespassing. Try me." They backed off that day, but I knew it wouldn't last. I'm not the kind of man who shouts just to hear his own voice. I knew if I wanted to win this, I'd need more than threats. I'd need proof. So I set up trail cameras along the ditch, hidden in fence posts and trees. Every truck, every footstep, every spray-painted flag, it all got recorded. Next, I dug through county records. My ditch showed up on property maps going back 70 years. It wasn't just on my land. It was marked as private agricultural drainage. That meant the HOA had exactly zero claim to it. Finally, I called up an old friend, Tom, a lawyer who'd spent more years in courtrooms than I'd spent fixing fences. I handed him the photos, the notices, the county maps. He gave me a slow grin and said, "Looks like Karen's about to learn the hard way what property lines mean." Sure enough, Karen pushed it too far. One Saturday morning, I woke to the sound of machinery, rushed outside and saw that backhoe again, this time actually dumping dirt into my ditch. I didn't waste a second. Called the sheriff, called Tom, then walked right up to the operator. Cut the engine. You're trespassing and destroying private property. Sheriff's on his way. Karen herself showed up minutes later, heels clicking like she owned the county. Mr. Jackson, you are in direct violation of HOA safety codes. We're remedying the issue ourselves. I pointed to the trail camera strapped to a post. Its little red light blinked back at us. Smile, Karen. You're on candid camera. And everything you've done is going straight to the county prosecutor. She blanched, but doubled down. You don't scare me. We'll bury this ditch, and you'll pay the fines. That's when the sheriff's cruiser pulled up, lights flashing. He stepped out, took one look at the backhoe in my ditch, and said, Karen, you and your crew need to shut it down, now. Tom arrived right behind him with a stack of paperwork. He handed it to the sheriff, who read it out loud. Cease and desist order against the Willow Bend HOA for trespassing and property damage. Karen's face went redder than a boiled crawfish. The sheriff ordered her off my land. The backhoe operator practically sprinted to his truck. And just like that, the empire of HOA authority collapsed in the middle of my field. Over the next month, the county slapped the HOA with fines of their own for illegal construction, trespassing, and harassment. Karen lost her position as president after the homeowners realized she'd been dragging them into lawsuits with their money. As for me, I stood there one evening, watching the sunset reflect off that same ditch. It was still there, still vine, carrying water the way it had for decades, and I thought about how close I'd come to rolling over just to keep the peace. But here's the thing. Once you give up ground to bullies, they don't stop. They take more. Whether it's a ditch, a fence line, or your right to breathe free on your own land, if you don't hold firm, you'll lose it all. Funny thing about that ditch. To most folks, it's just a muddy groove cutting across some grass. But to me, it's a reminder. A reminder that peace doesn't come from running away. It comes from planting your boots, standing tall, and saying, this far and no further. Because sometimes the fight isn't about dirt or bylaws. It's about principle. And if you don't defend that, you don't really own anything. So let me ask you, what's your ditch? What's that one thing you've had to stand up for, even when everyone told you to just let it go? Drop your story down in the comments. And if you've ever gone toe-to-toe with an HOA or some self-appointed neighborhood sheriff, I want to hear how you handled it. Because at the end of the day, these fights may seem small, but they're the ones that remind us who really owns our lives.